waiting on the whiz kids to sort out their mobiles and recording, but also I'm sure most of you have heard George is running a bit late. He's had a long way to come, so he should be here shortly, but we'll get started if you've waited long enough. My name's Teddy. I'm the Assistant General Secretary of the Workers' Party, and I'll just give a brief introduction, give a bit of context as to why we're standing. Now, many of you might think, what are the Workers' Party offering? You would have seen our leaflets. It's pretty old school, old Labour style values. And it's already evident 100 days into Labour's leadership that they plan to continue a policy of austerity in this country. We've had 14 years of that. I know I look 41, I'm only 31. I spent my entire adult life under austerity. And what have we seen in that time? We've seen this whole country change bit by bit, day by day. It's hard to notice it week by week, but you look back year upon year, it's fallen into decay. Now, there's obviously an argument to make that it wasn't that great beforehand, but certainly these last 14 years, this country's gone down the pan. Homeless on the streets, kids not knowing what to do with themselves. The list goes on. I'm sure many of you here have heard of the tragedy of kids dying in tower blocks because of mould. The list of crimes in this country goes on and on. And Labour, as I've said, are continuing this policy. We've already seen what's happened with the winter fuel allowance, something which would have cost, in the great scheme of things, a paltry sum. They've taken it away. And that's only one thing that they've taken away. How could have it been avoided is the question. Why was it cut? And we see where the leadership of this country under the Labour Party want to take things. Very quickly, another $3 billion for the war. That seems unending in Ukraine. And not just another $3 billion, another $600 million on top of that, taken by David Lammy. That sum would have paid for the winter fuel allowance for 10 million people. To me, to my party, it's common sense. Where do you spend the money? On continued bloodshed in Ukraine, something which we do not want to get involved in. The consequences would be catastrophic, life-ending, apocalyptic possibly. Or heating for 10 million people in this country, something we can actually improve. That's why the Workers' Party was formed in the wake of the 2019 general election. We could see, sadly, the way the wind was blowing. Many fellow party members were in the Labour Party. We had a choice to make. Do we continue in the Labour Party, banging our heads against the wall, or do we form a party which actually serves working people? So we made that choice, we made that plunge. We stood in the general election. It's regrettable we didn't get an MP, but we got a good showing in the votes. So there is a taste for something new. So it's with pleasure we're standing in St Michael's Ward. We hope to hold the council to account after Thursday. And we have the great pleasure of having our candidate here, Ejaz, who will take you through who he is and what he's standing for. So thank you very much.
I want to stand up, I think it'll be easier for me to talk about this, After Ted's introduction, I think, I will be a little bit kind of, feeling a little bit under pressure, because it gave lots of the stuff, so I was thinking to talk about, that's always given away. But I can start with my kind of, when I first moved to Coventry, from back home, it was kind of, for me, the living was so much easier than this, what we are having now. So I'm living here for the last 24 years. I was moved to London for a bit, but realized that, it's even harder in there, so I moved back to Coventry. So I'm living here for the last 24 years. And I've seen the good days, I've seen, when I had £20 in my pocket and I can go and do the weekly shopping, within that £20, So I've been through all of that, and Workers' Party is something kind of really new for me. I wasn't part of any politics before. I wasn't part of any kind of movement or any kind of any movement before. I was speaking to a brother, Dr. Muhammad Ali Sayed, who was our general election candidate. I was doing a little bit kind of campaign with him when he was our candidate for the general election. And I realized, that the Workers' Party is all about us, as a common people, as a common community, as a local community, as a local businesses. The Workers' Party is basically talking about the local issues, the local community, the local kind of environment, the local businesses, and it's all about the common working class. That's what appeals me, and that's where I just decided to go ahead with this and join the party. My campaign is all about, I was a voter of Labour for most of my life. I was voting for them, but then been through all that, Conservatives, kind of, their 14 years of their kind of, reign, and then Labour just got the power now. I've seen that, there's not much hope in both of these parties, and they are kind of, following, Labour is basically following the Conservatives' policies. We are kind of, going from one end to the other end, basically. They are spending all this money in the wars, in the Ukraine war, the sending money and arms, to Israel. I mean, I think we need to spend money here in the country first. We need to fix the street lights, which are going off, around the midnight. The crimes and the robberies are on the high because of, there's dark out there, and even in the 5 o'clock in the morning, you can see there's no kind of, it's very, very dark out there, So we need to fix those street lights first. There's garbage everywhere. There's all that rubbish sitting on the streets, making it kind of, I mean, we were in the ward, the other day, me and John Homer, and we've seen the rats running around, in front of near the churches, near the mosque. That's what we need to fix. We need to get rid of. You need to spend money here to get these things sorted for the local communities. So the pensioners are suffering. The working community is suffering. All the taxes are on the rise. All the bills are going up and up. Yeah, and the cost of living is all going up and up every day. You can feel the pinch, And it's this fight, I'm here with you guys, because I'm part of the working class, and my fight is for the local community, the local people, the local businesses, the working class, the real working class, who are paying for these wars. Actually, our tax, the amount they're paying towards Ukraine, towards the wars, that's all collecting from our taxpayers. It's the taxpayers' money, and they are spending it all on something which we should not spend it on. We should be looking after. We should be looking after our communities, our old age people, are suffering, sitting in our pensioners are suffering, So the cuts by the Labour, they decided to, they promised something and then they try to cut, the fuel bill is gone up. They are making so many cuts, they promised so much, before election, but now you can see that within couple of months, you can see that what they're trying to, they're just following the Conservatives' policies. They're just going ahead with the same policies. And I personally think that someone up there needs to be up there, you know, to fight these kind of, to fight with them, basically, you know. So my fight will be for you guys, for me, for my personal kind of a sake as well, you know, because I'm suffering. And as a working class, you know, we all, I'm sure that we all kind of, you know, will be in the same kind of a boat, you know, that we need to fight this, you know, together. So I need your help with the upcoming election on the 10th of October. I'm the candidate, you know, in the by-election. If you can vote for me, give me a chance to get into the council, fight against not the vermin outside on the streets, but the vermin who are sitting in the local council inside the buildings as well, you know. So we will try our best, you know, and I'm hoping that, you know, I've got so much positive response from the people, whoever I spoke to, they did not have the opportunity to, or I should say, you know, the choice before, that, you know, there's a monopoly of the either Conservative or Labours. So they did not have much of a choice before to see someone else, or someone else is available in there, you know, who can fight for them or with them. But now I think, you know, they can see that someone is available, basically, who can, you know, kind of do some sort of, you know, fight with these guys, try to get, you know, these things which we are kind of on daily basis, you know, we can see that, you know, everyday kind of, you know, stuff, you know, we can see people are suffering, the clean streets, the street lights, you know, we can see that every day. So someone needs to be there to talk to these guys, you know, to fight with these guys, you know, and ask them to spend money where it needs to, where you need to spend it, you know, with the working class first, you know. The working class needs it because we are paying the taxes. That money should be spent on our street lights, should be spent on our cleaning the streets, should be spent on our vulnerable pensioners, you know, the elderly, you know, the young people, you know, who are kind of, you know, participating in the drug-related crimes, becoming part of the gangster culture, you know. So my fight will be to provide more facilities for the young kind of, you know, people, engage them, you know, to participate in more healthy activities rather than just participate in the gang culture, the drugs related activities, you know. So once elected, you know, my fight will be to provide more kind of, you know, facilities for these young people. My fight will be to keep the street lights on for most of the night. My fight will be, you know, to ask them, you know, to spend money in our local communities. And I need your support, you know. So hopefully you will vote for me on the 10th of October, and we will get in there and we will fight for you guys and for us. Thank you.
Cheers, Ejaz. I hope this current spate of good weather continues, because we've already heard, all of us, the phrase heating or eating. We know what's coming this winter if this good weather doesn't continue. Not only the death of potentially many old people, but actually it will be the bitter christening of a new epoch. We've seen over the last 14 years the tragedy of 300,000 people die from causes the main man has arrived. I will briefly wrap up my point and thrust the microphone in his hand, because he's possibly who many of us are here for. 300,000 people these last 14 years have died from austerity-related causes. That means 300,000 people have died for reasons of financial instability, insecurity, the state under the Conservative Party withdrawing payment for things which are very basic. And we see the Labour Party continuing that policy with the removal of the heating allowance, amongst many other things. 300,000 people is the population of Nottingham, gone forever in this country. The paltry, pathetic reasons. That's why we need to fight back. And Ejaz is that man who can do that. He can be in Coventry City Council fighting for what he's spoken about. These are common sense issues. Keeping the streetlights on, common sense. Cleaning up the rubbish, common sense. The Tories and Labour come around year after year, knocking our doors, offering exactly the same things. What have they done? Diddly squat. And on that note, I'll pass you to George Galloway.
Thank you very much to everyone who's here, and my apologies for my late arrival, especially in the middle of my comrade's speech. Very happy to speak for the first time in my life, I think, in Coventry. I know that my friends will have spoken about the local issues and even the national issues, to which I will return. But if I may, given the importance of this date of 7th October, I'd like to say a few words to you and to the larger number of people who are going to be watching on the live stream. I think it would be remiss of me not to do so. The 7th of October is a very auspicious date. On the 7th of October, in 1944, the Jewish inmates of the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp rose up in an uprising. They tore down the walls. They tore down the barbed wire. They murdered their guards, their SS guards, in significant numbers. And they fought with their teeth. Well, that was all that they had for freedom. All of them were killed by the beasts who were keeping them in that concentration camp, that death camp. And 200 other inmates were the next day picked by lottery and murdered against a wall to discourage the others. That was on the 7th of October, 1944. The personifications amongst you will already have seen a parallel in what happened on the 7th of October of 2023. Now, this is a difficult day for us because state propaganda in all Western states is in full industrialized narrative control. And people like me have been receiving calls all day from journalists and public calls from other politicians to say that it is incumbent upon us to fall into line with the state narrative in this and in other states. So it's a difficult day to say what I'm going to say next. We in the Workers' Party stand foursquare with the Palestinian people in their despair, in their agony, in the despair, the same despair that drove the inmates of Auschwitz-Birkenau is the despair that was the wellspring of 7th October 2023. If I put you, your parents, your grandparents in a concentration camp, deprived you of food, regularly murdered you, occupied your land, air, and sea space, regularly bombarded you, and murdered your children, you'd rise up too, because that's what human beings do when placed in a concentration camp, when placed in a state of despair. And the truth is, it's a miracle that 7th October 2023 didn't happen before. It's a miracle that it didn't happen every day. Because the human condition, when pushed beyond that which any human being can, with dignity, endure, will rise up against it. We never had the chance, despite all the efforts of the Luftwaffe in this city, to break the spirit of the British people. We continued to resist, to stand alone for a time. But if we had been occupied by the Nazis who were at the Channel ports around this time in 1940 until the midsummer of 1941, when the few of our Royal Air Force, complemented by Polish pilots, pilots from the Empire, as it was called then, French pilots who had escaped with our men at Dunkirk. During that period, there was every possibility that our country would have been occupied, that many people like you would have been in concentration camps, deprived of all and everything that makes human life bearable. We would have risen up too. The best men and women in this country would have joined the resistance, like the French resistance, whom Hitler called terrorists when they rose up against their occupier, when they cut the throats of the SS and the occupying Nazi forces. They called them terrorists. We called them freedom fighters. We called them the resistance in France. We would have been the resistance in Britain. And the Palestinian people are the resistance now in occupied Palestine. It's hard for me to say these things today of all days. The pressure is enormous. But when the going gets tough, the tough get going. We will never surrender our support for the Palestinian people under occupation and under bombardment. We have had an entire year of watching, not on our television screens, because it doesn't appear there, but on our telephones. We have had an entire year of watching not 1,200 people being killed, but 160,000 people being massacred, most of them women and children. Most of them. At least 65, but maybe 75% of the dead and wounded, mutilated, amputated, scarred for life, emotionally destroyed, have been women and children. And the fact that our state narrative today cannot even spare one word for them is what makes our party and its perspective so important. Because when the House of Commons is unanimous, it's almost always unanimously wrong. And this House of Commons, this shrunken House of Commons, with the exception, I should say, of the local MP, Zara Sultana, who today, she's not a Labour MP anymore, she's suspended. Why is she suspended? For standing up for our old age pensioners who just had their cold weather payment stolen from them by a so-called Labour government. She spoke courageously in the House of Commons today and was treated with utter contempt by the so-called Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, Keir Starmer, Blair, Mark II, Tony Blair, without the last. This grim vista of tyrannical media control, even now moving into banning people from social media, from enunciating an alternative view, a contrary perspective, is what we are standing against. And if we do not, then we are coming to the end of the period in which it was possible to describe Britain as a democracy, to describe Britain as a free country. There are many people, 5 people, have told me today, and I've been in the air most of the day, that they would have liked to come here this evening, but they were afraid to do so. They were afraid that journalists might waylay them, misrepresent their attendance of some kind of celebration of October 7, or that demonstrators might be outside and there might be trouble. That's the kind of Britain we are now living in, where if you speak up for the Palestinians, isn't this the unkindest cut of all? Those that are the victims of terrorism are called the terrorists, and the terrorists are called the victims. It is a complete inversion of reality, a complete inversion of the truth. I see some African people in the hall tonight. When I was growing up, don't tell the wife she thinks I'm 45. When I was growing up, the Mau Mau rebellion was taking place in Kenya. I can still recall the hushed tones on television and in adult conversation around me, how the Kenyans were described as the terrorists when they were merely trying to kick out the colonizers of their country who had held them in bondage for centuries, stolen their very sons and daughters, and trafficked them to the New World where they could pick cotton for the colonizers there. I remember, I was very young, but I grew up in a very radical house with an Irish mother who knew all about colonialism. I remember thinking how strange it is that we, the British, and settlers who look like us, how could they be the goodies in Africa? What right did they have to rule in Africa, to exploit the people in Africa? In other words, the point I'm making is that colonialism is nothing new. Our whole country is based upon what was at various times defined as our divine right. God told us to sail the 7 seas and conquer a third of the entire world's population, because we were doing God's work in enslaving them, or they were children and we were the grown-ups, and we had to go there and hold their hands until they were grown up enough to govern themselves. But only if whoever governed them agreed that our interests came first. I see some Bengali in the room. When Britain captured Bengal, it was the richest place in the world, Ejaz. It was the richest place in the whole world. And when we left Bengal, it was the poorest place in the world. You really don't have to be Einstein to work out what happened in between. We stole 13 trillion pounds from India, as it then was, in its entirety. 13 trillion, an unimaginable number. We stole it by force of arms and trickery. It's not a new thing, this colonialism, imperialism. These are big words. What do they mean? In George Orwell's first novel, Burmese Days, placing himself in the figure, the character of a colonial official in Burma called Jim Flory. He's in a conversation with a young woman. He's trying to impress her. Keeps using the word imperialism. Finally, the girl says, "What is this imperialism of which you speak?" And Flory answers, "It's going to other people's countries and stealing their things." As good a definition of colonialism as it's possible to arrive at, and delivered in a single line of dialogue. We have been doing it for centuries, going to other people's countries and stealing their things. Now, of course, the ordinary British worker profited little from the looting. They may have, though even that is arguable, had a marginally higher or less low standard of living in the empire period than they would have if not for the empire, but the rest was looted by our rulers, our ruling families, who are the same ruling families who rule us today. It is the system under which we live that is the root of all of our problems. Now tonight in Lebanon, there is a truly massive blitzkrieg by cowards from the air who don't see the victims that they are creating, but they are creating thousands of them in just days. The kill rate in Lebanon is higher than the kill rate in Gaza, and it shows no sign of stopping. But here I have the melancholy duty to report to you that while you have been in here, Channel 13, television news in Israel, has announced that an attack on Iran is imminent and may even now be in the air. This is important for many reasons, but the most important is that Iran has pledged that it will respond to any new attack by Israel with overwhelming force, or to use the words of one Iranian minister, in unimaginable ways. That means that if tonight Israel attacks Iran, by the morning Iran will have attacked back. Not with 175 rockets this time. Not even by 1,750 rockets this time. But by thousands and thousands of ballistic missiles, hypersonic, unstoppable. No iron dome can possibly resist them. Which means that by tomorrow, the entire region may be in all-out war. In those circumstances, we are potentially looking at World War III. Because if Israel cannot prevail with conventional weapons, who here would bet anything at all that they will not have recourse to the hundreds of nuclear weapons which they illegally, illicitly have created and maintained? Only a fool would bet that they would somehow not have recourse to those weapons. And over the weekend, there was an ominous rumble in the Iranian desert, which could have been an earthquake, but most people believe was Iran testing its own nuclear weapon. If Israel fires nuclear weapons at Iran, and Iran fires nuclear weapons at Israel, and Israel's allies, the United States, the United Kingdom, France, all nuclear armed countries come to the aid of Israel, then Russia and China will come to the aid of Iran. And what are you going to call that except World War III? In which case, all of our talk tonight might just be odious. There might be no election, but let's hope that we at least get you elected as a councillor before the we are desperately let down by our political class. Who would have thought that little Rishi Sunak would turn out to be a better Prime Minister than Keir Starmer? It's almost impossible to believe. A wet lettuce, Liz Truss, has turned out to be a better Prime Minister than Keir Starmer. Well, you don't believe me? Let's take just two examples. I heard Keir Starmer and his crew 100 times accusing the Tories of preparing to take the old people's warm weather payments, cold weather allowance. I heard them. I saw the lips move. They were denouncing the Tories as going to rob our pensioners. But they didn't. It was Starmer and Labour that robbed our pensioners. I heard Keir Starmer hundreds of times denounce the two-child cap on child benefit as cruel beyond belief. What does the third child do to deserve poverty? She didn't choose to be the third born or the fourth born, and you're refusing to give her child benefit, which is a pittance in any case, by the way. As anyone would, I have 6 children. I know how little But the Labour Party was no sooner in the door than it announced that it was keeping the two-child cap on child benefit. And the very next day, don't think I'm exaggerating, look it up. The day after they made that announcement of the cold weather payment being withdrawn from 10.8 million people, they handed over another 600 million pounds to the crook in Kiev, Zelensky, the dictator of the Ukraine, bringing to 13 billion pounds the amount of your money they have given to a war in far Eastern Europe, which has nothing to do with you, except that your government is up to its neck in it for its own imperial reasons as a servant of the American empire. So you see, there's no real disconnect between the international, the national, and the local. You have heard already about all the local problems here. Well, that's because they say there's no money. Why is there no money? Because the national government follows policies that protect the rich at the expense of the poor. And the national government is involved in war after war after war overseas. I saw a column of tens of thousands of Lebanese refugees walking to Syria yesterday. Where do you think they're going to end up, these refugees? They're going to end up on a Reform Party political broadcast in a rubber dinghy headed for here. They're not going to stop in Syria. It's already broken by war and sanctions. They're going to go to Turkey, which already has millions of refugees, and it's going to keep them moving. And where do they keep moving? They keep moving into Europe. But the Reform Party completely supports these wars that put people on the road as refugees, and then they denounce them when they try to cross the channel in a rubber dinghy. You see the point I'm making here? If you want to stop the boats, you're going to have to stop the wars. It's the wars that are creating the boats. You can't separate these two things. Now, lastly, we are patriotic British people, wherever we came from. I came from Ireland. Ejaz came from Bangladesh, Pakistan. Yes, God love Pakistan. God save Pakistan, actually. Save it from its own army. Save it from its own corrupt, wicked government. The only Englishman here, the only red-blooded Englishman here is our Assistant Deputy General Secretary. But we are all patriotic British people. We wish for the best for the British people. We work for the best for the British people. We don't hold the British people responsible for the crimes of their rulers. We are also the victims of these same rulers. We support a united Britain. We oppose all attempts to divide us either on fake nationalist grounds or fake racist grounds. We believe in national unity. We want to recreate our finest hour when we as a British people together, all kinds rise up and take back control of our destiny. We supported Brexit and support it still because we believe in British independence. But we didn't want to swap the European Union for the United States of America. We didn't want to stop taking orders from von der Leyen in order to take them from Joe Biden, for God's sake, who couldn't bite his own nails. You wouldn't send them for a loaf of bread and expect them to come back with the right thing. So we believe in Britain. We believe in a better Britain. We believe in a Britain governed, run, ruled by the working people themselves. That's who we are. And that's how we ask for your support in this local government by-election on Thursday. We have a real chance here because Labour and the other so-called opposition parties are frankly an embarrassment to the political scene here in Britain. You need something new. I mentioned Einstein earlier. His definition of madness remains the best one. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If you vote Labour on Thursday, don't expect anything to change. They're not even pretending that it's going to change. In this by-election on Thursday, if Labour win it, nothing will change and nobody will notice. Nobody will have heard you at all. But if you elect Ejaz, have you any idea of the political earthquake that will be right across the West Midlands? Everyone will be talking about you. Everyone will be saying, did you see that result? In the St. Michael's Ward, did you see what happened there? Don't you want that? Don't you want to make an impact? Don't you want to raise your voice in support of all these downtrodden people at home and abroad that I have been talking about this evening? So we need you, not just to vote for Ejaz yourself, but to make sure your husband, your wife, your children over 18, your next door neighbor, your workmate, the people you speak to in the supermarket, you tell them about this election result on Thursday, this contest on Thursday. Because most people don't know about it, you know. I mean, I'm going to make a wild prediction that only 15% of the people will actually vote, meaning the 85% will not vote. That's how depressed the level of political consciousness in this country is. So we need you to be our evangelists in this, to take what you heard here this evening and the importance of it out to everyone that you can possibly reach between now and Thursday at 10 p.m. Thank you very much indeed for listening.
So we will wrap up now. I apologise for the wait at the beginning. I want to just say a couple of closing remarks. First and foremost, George has already given the pitch. Get people out to vote on Thursday. If you want to keep updated with our campaign, we've got contact sheets at the back. Paul, our General Secretary, is wandering around somewhere outside. You can talk to him as well. And we can add you to our WhatsApp group to keep you updated with our campaign. Not just now. We don't plan to disappear. We've got a great crew here in Coventry. Ejaz and gang are here for the long term, and we'll continue campaigning for Coventry. But lastly, I want to thank you for coming tonight. Like I say, I hope the weather remains good, the rain stays away, and we have a warm winter. So have a safe journey home. Feel free to catch any of us if you want to question us more. Thank you very much.
Just one more thing, my kind of email and my X is available on the leaflets, so if you want to contact me about anything, I will be available on those. The QR code, for some reason, is not working at the moment. Somebody needs that take, so it's not taking you to the WhatsApp group. But in case if you want to talk to me about any other issues in the area in the St. Michael's ward, please feel free to give me an email or text. Thank you.
I just said, if you want to catch any of us, myself, anyone, feel free to hang around and ask us.
When you said,
Like I said, you're welcome.